しかった日のこと、そんな冬の日のこと。確かに寒い頃から丈夫な方じゃなかった。
But even so, I went to grade school normally. During summer vacation, I played until I was turned very dark. June, soon after entering the middle school. The day after we ordered swimsuits for the swimming class that would start next month. That time was the first time I experienced being admitted to a hospital. Just a little before the first semester midterms, a day where the rain that started to fall felt awfully cold. In the midst of that pure white sky of the rainy season, in the beginning, everyone in the class came to visit me each day. And when I was discharged from the hospital during the weekends, they would come to my house to play. But that was just the beginning. Fall came, winter left, hospitalized, discharged, outpatient care, and then starting again with hospitalization. Classmates who once we called friends, at some point became acquaintance, and then turned into stranger. With each turning of the season, it seems that I was disappearing for their memories.
どうやらいい気がしないらしい。普通に生きている人にとって私の存在ってのは、だから消されたようだった。いくつもの季節を、白い梅雨空を、誰とも言葉を交わす必要もなく過ごした。私の英語の教科書は1年生の中間テスト以降まっさらな状態だった。そこで私の時間も止まったらしい。
8 years later, 2004, early summer. Protagonist. Summer. Flowing sweat. In the driver's license examination area, a large electronic bulletin board was installed. All at once, the lights came on, and like everyone else there, I searched for my own number. 237, 237. Scanning among the mostly lit light panel, I found my own examination number. Because it was just past midday, the train car was quite empty. And in that empty car, I was on the way home from the examination center. In my left hand was the traffic regulations manual I had just received. In my shirt pocket was the brand new license. With this, I am also normally licensed, right? I murmured somewhat seriously, but didn't feel any particular strong emotion. It's not like I want to drive cars, nor I did really have another purpose in mind. It was just people around me were going to the training center and had recommended I at least get a driver's license. That night, when I reported to my parents that I had gotten my license, "Is that so?" was the short reply. As an experiment, I tried saying that I want to borrow the car, and just as shortly came a, "You can't." It wasn't like I had want to drive the car, but the response were exactly as I had imagined. They were those sort of parents. The next day, upon waking up, my chest hurt, and so I was taken to the hospital. Normally, I had little to do with things involving sickness. That was why waiting in the initial waiting room felt extremely boring. Finally, just when I thought the examination was over, this time I went to take x-rays and blood tests was made to go. On top of that, for a long, long time, I was made to wait in boredom. Without noticing, I had finished reading 3 books of Jump manga that was in the waiting room and was searching for a fourth. And just like that, I was made to the paperwork for being admitted into the hospital. The brand new driver's license that still lay in my shirt pocket. It looked like the time for his debut was far off. Protagonist 2004 Autumn. Around when those very noisy cicadas had stopped crying. As usual, I was in the hospital. Of course, it wasn't like I always admit in the hospital. I would be in and out. Last month, I had my first experience with surgery. After being discharged, I commuted 5 minutes to outpatient care by scooter. And even from then on, I admit, discharge, outpatient care, gradually moving to being admit again. I know anything about PAT or IRASA, but I noticed through the comings and goings that a number of months have passed. In exchange of my decreasing appetite, the types and amounts of drugs increased. Even I could see with my own eyes that my strength was declining. My legs felt a bit thin, but that is not your imagination. The needle on the scale would tell me. Yet, I was looking at myself somehow objectively, as if I were watching a stranger, like looking at a single scene on television. The sudden things that happened to my body, my head couldn't keep up with them. The feeling that what was happening was real didn't arise. And so, even though it was supposed to be my own body, I could only watch myself from afar with cold eyes. Winter. Around when Christmas trees were disappearing from the streets. Perhaps it was the end of the year, but I was allowed to return home. In the end, it seems to be the only temporary. But even then, I was a bit happy. In a mix of rain and sleet, I returned home for the first time in a while. For some reason, everyone in the family was gathered. Even though my parents normally didn't speak much, while being a bit stiff, they smiled at me. The little sister who I always argued with made my favorite cream stew and fried shrimp. We sat next to each other in the kotatsu. They peeled mandarins for me. They were excessively kind. That was the impression it left. During this time, I had just a bit of realization still left in the pocket. That brand new license. That license, without giving rise to any practical value, might expire. While having stiff, unnatural smile directed me. Calmly, vaguely, rather simply, I thought of that, as if thinking of someone else. Protagonist, January 2005. The new year passed and I returned again to the hospital. For some reason, on that day, I didn't go to the 4th floor, but instead to a conference room, was made to go. There, with my father and a doctor, I heard many things, was made to listen. It was that thing called notification. Probably. They had an extremely indirect way of speaking, but in the end, it seems like I was going to die. See, that was why I was the only able to reply with that. I couldn't find other words from when I entered until I left the room. That was all I said. Accepting my answer, the doctor moved the ballpoint pen in his hand. Most likely, it was the paperwork of the hospice. To the very end, he was very businesslike. My father was very much the same. It was such a simple thing. That was my honest impression. And then, between that day and the next, I changed from the 4th to the 7th floor, from a 6-patient room to a single. And also, this 7th floor itself was a bit different from other floors. For one thing, the floors were sparkling, the ceiling was much higher, much broader. Inside the rooms were extremely clean. The large windows seemed designed to let in lots of sunlight. However, the windows only opened a tiny bit. When I tried measuring, it was slightly smaller than allowing your head pass through. The other thing was the color of the ID bracelets changed. Since the day I was admitted, a vinyl bracelet was always wrapped around my wrist, upon it was my name and blood type. That color had changed from blue to white. High ceilings, white vinyl bracelets, windows that could only open 15 centimeters. The day I was transferred to the 7th floor, it was when the boring New Year's programs were still being broadcast. The time I met her for the first time was also at the very beginning of the year.
Narcissus. 冬7階
Across the hall, facing the nurse station, was a lounge-like place. Left in that unpopulated place were a number of sofas, folding chairs, and a large television. On that 20-inch CRT, meaningless New Year's program running. Watching that boring television with an equally bored expression was some girl. She had a small build and wore pink pajamas. Her wrist had, just like I did, a white bracelet. Hair that was to her hips left an impression. Hey you, isn't that interesting? There wasn't with any particular deep meaning since there was no more around. I tried speaking to her profile.
別に
That was all that she replied with. She didn't even turn towards me even though I had spoken to her. Perhaps she had absolutely no interest in me. She continued to gaze at the television with a bored look. If it's boring, you don't have to watch it. As I thought that, I also sat down in a folding chair. And sitting next to her, I gazed at the television, and there was nothing else to do, nothing else I could do. Quietly, we continued to gaze at the television. On the screen were the usual New Year's program, pathetic impersonations and parlor tricks. Occasionally ringing out the hot, stupidly high-pitched laugh in a pure white sunlit room it rarely never reverberated.
ねえあなた
Suddenly the girl spoke to me while still gazing the television.
あなた何回目
Which time? What does that mean?
ここに7階に来たの
Sorry, I don't understand the meaning of the question.
そう初めてなんだね
Oh. It seems that at my inability to understand what she was saying, she had up and gotten satisfied with the judgment.
じゃあ他に誰もいないし私の役目だから
Duty.
そういうルールなの
Oh. While nodding, she added that there is a rule for someone who teach people who first come here to the 7th floor. Right now, I knew something about anything. Oh, I knew nothing about anything. And as if ignoring me, the girl slowly began speaking.
それじゃあよく聞いてね
Okay. The girl's words came by ones and twos. They were slightly different compared to the doctor's speech that I had heard up until coming here. In that business-like speech from the doctor, it was said that this was a place to await the advancement of medicine. It was also called a place for healing the heart. Most likely, wordly speaking, that was probably correct. However, from what the girl said, that was a facade. This 7th floor was within the hospital, but was the only place that didn't give treatment. Simply a place for wait for the end of life. That's what the girl said. That's what I also felt, and had the same perception.
私2回目だから
Second time. What's that?
ここに来るの
Oh. And the girl thought me. This place, called the seventh floor, to be here from the moment of admission all the way until dying, first of all, apparently didn't happen. Even if being cured was impossible, if your health became better, then they would allow you to come to go home once. But after a while and it turns bad, once again you come back. Among those comings and goings, eventually you'll die. The place where life ran out, it only different between home and the seventh floor. Unfailingly, one would die in either of those. It seems no one has ever escaped that. It was with that meaning that the girl had meant by saying it was her second time.
じゃあ、一度しか言わないから、ここからはよく聞いて。
Still looking at the dull screen, the girl continued speaking even more. The subject being not about what time the lights would be out, and the normal sort of topic exchange between admitted patients. She taught me about totally different things. On the third time, you've given a temporary discharge. Prepare yourself. There is never a fourth. You won't be going home anymore. If there is a time that you want to run away, not to station A, but towards station B. Don't eat anything. That is the shortest path. It will end with the least burden for your family. It was the only full of this sort of topic that gives one pause. Most likely, it was the only people who came to hear. Only those who participating in moving towards that. These were the things that they have continued to pass down. Was the duty you mentioned this?
ええ、そうよ。いつかあなたも初めて来た人には伝えてね。
With those final words, the girl slowly stood up, gently, her long hair swayed, and brushed the tip of my nose.
じゃあ、検温の時間だから。
And then, just like that, with her back facing me, she began walking towards the hall. I was left alone in that place, with a laughing voice from the screen, and the white flowers decorating around the window. In the end, the girl never once looked in my direction.